everybody! Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. It's time for another pocket pet. So let's peek into the pocket and see who pops out. It's time for a bunny! I love bunnies. I can't get enough bunnies. And I know a lot of you love bunnies too. So I thought today we would do a pocket pet bunny. I just am so obsessed with this little rabbit. I've been carrying him around for a week. Anyway, in order to make this bunny along with me today, you're going to need to reference the Pocket Pet Kitty, and I'll put that link in the description box down below, and it'll also pop up over here. And you can go ahead and pop over there, and you want to make the same body shape, the same bottom shape, and the same little arms. So once you've got all those, then you can come back and make the rest of the bunny with me. So that's all you need for that. And the materials are roughly the same. You only need a bunny color and another color for the inside of his ears. But I will talk about that in the materials section of this tutorial. And one more little thing. There's a cute little, little bunny tail. I just want to chew it off. And you can do one of three things. You can get a store-bought pom-pom for this. You can make a pom-pom all on your own if you've got pom-pom makers or you know how to make them around your fingers. Or, a little while ago, I did a hat doodads tutorial, and I'll put that link in the description box down below as well. And you can go and make a pom ball. And that is perfect for a little rabbit tail. So whichever one you want to try and make, it's entirely up to you. But without further ado, let's hop over to the craft table and make ourselves a little pocket pet bunny. In order to make our pocket pet bunnies, you're going to want acrylic, worsted weight, or chunky weight yarn. So a 4 or a thinner 5. I'm using worsted weight acrylic today for most of his body, and a small amount of, this obviously is overkill, but you just need a scrap amount of a different color for his inner ears. And you don't really need much more than, I'm going to say, 30 grams of yarn for the whole body. I'm using a 4.25 millimeter hook, or a G6. You're going to want scissors, a yarn needle, a couple of buttons for his eyes, a little bit of embroidery floss for his nose and mouth features, and a needle, an embroidery needle, or a large-eyed needle in order to do the embroidery. And for his tail, you can crochet him a little pom ball like I did here, and the tutorial for that is in the description box down below. Or you can make him a little pom-pom like I did, and I left the strings on so I can tie it to his behind. You can also buy pom-poms in the store if you don't really want to do either of these things, in which case you can either glue it to his bottom or you can use a needle and thread and sew it down. So once you've got all those things, we can get started. The Pocket Pet Bunny is made the same way that the previous Pocket Pets are. So if you check out the Pocket Pet Kitty tutorial, and I'll put that link in the description box down below as well, it will show you in greater detail how to make his body, which looks like this, the bottom, which looks like this, and remember you want to leave a long tail for sewing your bottom onto your body. And then the two arms. And the arms are exactly the same. You need 2 of them. And it's just a cinch circle with 5 single crochets in it. And then you just single crochet in each stitch around for 4 rows. And those are your 2 little arms. So you want to make those pieces up first and then stuff them. So you want to stuff your body, sew your bottom on. You don't need any stuffing in your arms. But let's get the body sewn together first. And then we'll move on to his ears. Okay, we're going to go ahead and make his ears now. And I've already made one, so you have something to look at while we make our second one. So we're going to make the actual ear first, and then we're going to sort of stitch in the inner ear part secondly. So we're going to grab our bunny color and make a cinch circle. And into this cinch circle, we're going to work 4 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Cinch it up nice and tight. And we're going to work in the round, so we're going to work directly into our first single crochet that we made. And we're going to work 2 single crochets into that first single crochet we made in row 1. So it's a little tight, but it will loosen up, don't worry. So there's 2. 1 single crochet into the next stitch. There's the next stitch. 2 single crochets into that next stitch. You don't have to work over your short tail, but I like to. Kind of weaves things in as I go. And that brings us to the last stitch, so we're going to work 1 single crochet into that. So we've gone from a total of 4 in row 1 to a total of 6 in row 2. We're going to increase once more, same pattern. So 2 single crochets into the next stitch, 1 into the next stitch, 2 single crochets into the next stitch, 1 into the next, 2 into the next stitch, and 1 into the last stitch. So we've gone from 6 stitches in row 2 to 9 stitches in row 3. We're going to do one more row of increase, and we're going to change the pattern a little bit. So we're going to work 2 single crochets into the next stitch, a single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, so 1 single crochet each, 2 single crochets into the next stitch, a single crochet into each of the next 2, and we're going to repeat that one last time. 2 single crochets into the next stitch, and a single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. Great, so now we've gone from 9 stitches in row 3 to 12 stitches in row 4. So you should have 12 stitches all the way around. Rows 4 and 5, or I should say 5 and 6, you're just going to single crochet into each stitch around. And there's no more increasing, so you're just going to work a couple rows of straight single crochet. Alright, I finished my 6th row. I was just doing straight single crochet around, and I'll show you how you know where you're at. So here's row 1, this tiny wee little 4-stitch circle we made. Here's the bump, ba-boom, where it turns into row 2. So I'm going to use that as my start point, and I'm going to make sure that I've single crocheted around until my last stitch is even with it. That doesn't change your stitch count, it just evens up your rows, and I like to do that when I'm working in the round. And then you can count your rows. So that's row 1, that's row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6. So that's 6 rows. So we got half an ear here so far. Row 7, we're going to decrease now, and we're going to work the opposite of what we did in row 4. So we're going to single crochet the next 2 stitches together. So you pick up a loop in the next stitch, and pick up a loop in the stitch after that. So you've got 3 loops on your hook that connects 2 stitches together. Wrap and pull through both. Single crochet normally into the next 2 stitches, and then single crochet the next 2 together. So you pick up a loop in each stitch, wrap, and pull through everything. Single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches, nice and normal. One more decrease. We're going to single crochet the next 2 stitches together, and then single crochet into the next 2 stitches, nice and simple. Alright, we've gone from 12 stitches to 9, so you should have 9 stitches all the way around for row 7. Row 8, you're just going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around. So row 8 will also have a total of 9 stitches in it, And it is getting a little tight here, so just be patient. You don't have to speed through this. You want to make sure you get every single one of your stitches going around. And if it helps to count, that's what I like to do. Okay, at the end of row 8, you will have 9 single crochets. We're going to decrease once more in row 9, and we're going to go from 9 to 6. So we're going to single crochet the next 2 stitches together, single crochet into the next stitch, work another decrease over the next 2 stitches, so we're going to single crochet those 2 together, single crochet into the next stitch, and decrease one more time, single crochet those next 2 stitches together, and work your last stitch, just a plain old single crochet. That's the end of row 9. And now you've got one more row to do. You're just going to single crochet into each stitch all the way around. You should have 6 stitches. So just count 6 single crochets out, and that'll be the end of row 10. Alright, once you get to the end of row 10, just make sure you've got 6 stitches. You're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. That just cleans up that row. And leave a little bit of tail, about 6 inches or so that you can sew your ear onto your rabbit. And then just fasten off. Great. And you can give it a little flatten, and there you go. You've got an ear. So the next thing we're going to do is put in this cute little inner ear color, which kind of makes him look like he's listening. So now you're going to need your yarn needle for this, and your inner ear color, so whatever color you've chosen, and you want to sort of cut yourself a length that's about, I go with 2 feet or 60 centimeters long, just to be on the safe side, because you don't want to come up short. Thread up our needles here, and I like to keep my fasten off to the back. And so what I did with this one is I went, here's row 1, row 2, and right between row 2 and row 3 I found a little space. So I'm going to do the same thing here. And I've brought my needle up, so from the inside out, and I'm going to pull my yarn until there's just about, a couple inches hanging out the bottom, because I'm going to use that to knot it up when I'm finished. Then I'm going to pick a space a couple rows from the top, bring my needle back down, and back out through the same place that I brought my yarn out, and I am going to do what they call a long whip stitch. This is also known as a straight stitch. This is going to whip stitch several times through the same 2 holes. Careful not to pull tight on your yarn, because you don't want to bend your ear out of shape, and try to make sure you don't accidentally go through the back. So sort of feel your way around the inside of your ear with your yarn needle, and just keep putting in nice long stitches until you fill up the inside of your ear and it's a nice solid looking color. Alright, once you've filled in your inner ear to the thickness that you want, and if you've already gone ahead and make one, then make sure that they're roughly even. You're going to take your needle, go back down through that top stitch, and come right out the bottom. There we go. Then knot those 2 ends together. And stick the whole thing up inside the ear. Nice and neat and tidy. There you go. So the knots are on the inside, and you've got this nice tidy little inner ear color on your ears. So go ahead and make number 2 if you haven't done that already, and we'll attach them to our rabbit. I went ahead and stuffed and sewed the bottom onto my rabbit body. So I've got this nice little roly-poly chubby body here, and I'm ready to put on his ears. So I like to take my little, oh my gosh, this is so cute. I like to take my little body and just sort of set my ears on him and decide, you know, what kind of a rabbit is he? Is he alert, or his ears upright, and is he paying attention, or is he maybe a little lop-eared bunny and they're going to sit nice and low, or is one up going to be one up and one down? I think I'm going to make him like my first bunny, and I'm going to put them both up on the top of his head. And you'll see that I sewed them on either side of that middle first row. So there's that middle round circle, and I sewed them both starting outside of that row and then straight out from there. And I like that spacing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to thread up my first ear tail, pick up my rabbit. There's my middle row, or my first row, and I'm going to place the ear right sort of next to that, and I'm going to work my first stitch. I'm going to work through the bottom, so both sides, there we go, both sides of the bottom together. And that first couple stitches takes a little bit of getting used to, but then, so just move this out of the way, I'm going to pick up the next 2 stitches in the line that I want my ear to follow, so like that. And then same thing, I'm going to go through, you can see that, both sides of the ear. And I'm going to do that for both ears on both sides of my rabbit head. Alright, and once I've got both my ears sewn down, I'm going to bring both yarn tails out through a common space in the back of the bunny. So I've already pulled this one down. Now I'm just going to poke this one in. I'm going to come out through the same hole with my needle, and then I'm going to do what I just did with the inner bunny ear. I'm going to tie both those tails together, and then I'm going to tuck it back into the body of the bunny. This way there's no knots on the outside of your little amigurumi, and all your tails are tucked up nice and neat on the inside. Next thing we're going to do is put on his eyes, because I like to base a lot of things off the eyes, where I put the nose, where I put his arms, so eyes go on next. I've got my 2 buttons, and I'm going to pick up Bunny and decide where I want to put his eyes. Do I want them up high or low? Do I want them wide apart, or maybe kind of close together? I think I might line them up with his ears, and I'm going to put them right in the middle of his body. So I'm just going to sort of set them there. Oops. I'm going to thread up the same yarn, or the same little embroidery needle. Basically it's just a needle with a really big eye that I'm going to use with my embroidery thread. And I'm going to use embroidery thread to sew on my buttons, because not only does that make the buttons go on nice and like firmly, but it's, I mean, you may as well just use what you've got at hand, right? So that's what I'm going to do. And we're going to do the same sort of thing that we've done with all the other tails. So I'm going to pick a spot, a little space between the stitches. I gotta remind myself where I'm putting my ears, or I should say my eyes, so in line with my ears. And I'm going to bring my needle out where I want my first eye to go, and leave some tail, because I want to knot the ends together when I'm done. So thread up the button, I'm going to hold that tail with my thumb, and I'm going to go all the way through to the other side of my rabbit face. So I'm not going to pull too tightly. Thread up my other button, and I'm going to go back and forth through the face of my bunny. I can even bring my needle right through the little eye bit. I don't know if you can see that, but that's how I'm going to sew on my 2 buttons. So I'm going to go back and forth, couple times, maybe 3 or 4, just to make sure it's on there nice and tight. And then I'm going to bring my tail back out through the same place and knot my 2 ends together and pull everything into the bunny head. Alright, I've got both my strings coming out of the same place in his forehead. I'm just going to put a quick knot in there. This is sort of finicky. There we go. And you can use your wool needle if you need to in order to just sort of tuck everything back in there, because it's a little less damaging to the yarn than sort of trying to wiggle around a darning needle or an embroidery needle. For my bunny's nose, I've worked a nice sort of wide triangular nose shape between his 2 eyes. And I also did his mouth at the same time. So you're going to want to cut yourself a length of embroidery floss that you'll be able to get a nose and a little mouth out of. So that's probably 3.5 feet I've got there, threaded through my needle and almost folded completely in half. So now for a little embroidery. We're going to take our needle, and you can just pick some even middle piece. Since I'm going to do my mouth last, I'm going to come up through the bottom here. My mouth probably won't extend past this row, so I think down here I'm nice and safe. And I want my nose to see this stitch. I'll get my other hook here. This stitch right here. This is the stitch that I'm going to work in a triangular formation over top of. So I'm going to bring my needle out through the bottom of that stitch. I'm going to leave some tail because I want to make sure I've got something I can knot up at the end. And then I'm going to start to work whip stitches in a triangular format, covering that stitch and always coming back out through the same bottom space. So this is what's going to make a nice, neat little triangular nose. Don't pull your stitches too tight because you don't want to pull the face out of alignment. You don't want to stretch that stitch or damage that yarn. So just work a few stitches in between the same 2 points to kind of build it up. And then move to the next 2 points, but always keep the bottom point the same. You want to work back and forth a few times until you have some nice even coverage of that little nose stitch. And if you want, you can slip your needle in underneath all of those little stitches you made and just gently pull up and wiggle a little bit, and that will kind of help even them all out if you've got some that don't seem to feel like they're fitting in normally. If some are loose and some are tight. Once you've got your nose finished, we're just going to work a cute little mouth. So I'm going to work the same mouth that I did on this little rabbit. And I've made sort of an upside, like an A shape with a little tiny turn up at the bottoms. So I'm going to take my needle, I'm already out, so I'm going to go on an angle. So across this stitch, down 1 row, I'm going to go on an angle, and I'm going to bring it out. So I'll use my left hand here. So I'm going to go this way, crosswise over this stitch, and I'm just going to bring it out just up a bit. Got to make sure I get underneath the stitch. So just up a little bit. So that brings me a nice little line this way, and then I'm going to double back into the same little place and back up to the nose where I started. I'm going to try and make sure that I get my needle on the other side of that thread. Try not to pull everything too tight because you don't want your little mouth to disappear. So there's side 1, and now I'm going to mimic it. I'm going to skip the diagonal over the stitch going in the other direction and come up just a little bit. Oh, got caught around my ear. There we go. Now because this is your last stitch, you go back into the same little space at the bottom of your little mouth and then back out at the bottom where you initially brought your thread in. There we go. All right. It's a happy looking rabbit. I don't need too much thread, so I'm just going to snip it, just so I've got enough to tie a nice, neat little knot. Next, you're going to keep your handy little wool needle with you, and you're going to grab your two arms, and we're going to sew his arms on. Now, I don't put stuffing in my arms because I think they're small enough that they don't really require any, and it also gives them a little bit more movement. So I'm going to work through both sides of my hand. So I'm going to pinch the end together, and I'm going to work through both sides, just sort of like I did with this guy here. And that's going to make a nice little, sort of like a, what do you call that, like a hinge, so he can wave at you. And you want to decide where you want your arms to go. I like my little pocket pet arms to be kind of up front, so on the side, but a little front, just so he looks like they're kind of a bit forward. And just below his eyes, so I'm going to put them just below the row that runs underneath his eye. So I'm going to sew it through the edge of that row. So I'm going to pick up a stitch, or at least a piece of the body, go through both sides of my rabbit arm, and repeat. Pick up another piece of a stitch, and if you have to do that stitch first, do that, and then you can run your needle through both sides of the arm. And one more. And if you're giving this to a little person, you want to make sure that maybe you go back and forth a couple times just so your pieces are on nice and tight. And if it's anyone under the age of 5, I don't recommend using buttons for eyes. You might want to use safety eyes. You can get those at craft stores, or you can crochet yourself a couple of little eyes. That might be safer. Just because we don't want anyone pulling off a button and swallowing it. Once you've got both your arms on nice and tight, bring both the strings through a space in the back, knot them together, and pull them in to the body, just like you did with your ears. Alright, these guys look almost finished, but oh, there's one thing missing. We need his tail. So like I mentioned, you can either crochet him a little pom ball, like I did here, or you can make or buy a little pom-pom, because really, what's cuter than a super fluffy tail on your rabbit? If you're going to make yourself a pom-pom, then leave the two strings, so that string that you tie around the middle to make your actual pom-pom, leave the strings, and you can pick up one end and then the other with your yarn needle and sew it to the bottom of your bunny. Now, because this is rather a fluffy little number, I think I'm going to sew it up 2 rows from the bottom. Oh. So with those 2 strings you've got, you can run it around a couple times through the same sort of stitch. So go back and forth once or twice. And then grab the other one, go through the same stitch and wrap the other way a couple times. And then maybe pick up the stitch just below it and do the same thing with both strings for that one. So a couple times around 2 different stitches. That'll make sure it's on nice and tight. If you're sewing another, like a store-bought pom-pom, or glue gunning it on, then make sure if you're using a glue gun that you A, practice safety, because those things can get pretty hot, and B, make sure that you pick your spot and are absolutely sure of it before you put glue on, because that thing will not come off. Alright, same thing. You can knot together your 2 strings once you've tied that on and you feel that your pom-pom is on nice and firmly. And then In this case, you can just poke your needle into the body of your rabbit. If your needle eye is big enough, like mine is here, you can thread up both ends at the same time and just pull it all the way through and then wiggle your ends back into the body of your rabbit. There. And there's his little tail. And there you go! I have a pair of bunny buddies, and they have cute little tails. Oh my gosh, I love these so much. I hope you had fun making a pocket pet bunny along with me. I'm going to make a whole bunch more because there's nothing quite as cute as a bunny, except maybe a whole bunch of them. And that is it for this week, everybody. If you make a pocket pet bunny, be sure to post pictures to me. You can do that on Google+, you can do that on Instagram, or Pinterest, or even over at my Etsy shop, and I am Jayda InStitches in all 4 locations. Remember, you can like this tutorial, you can subscribe if you haven't already, and you can share our videos with all of your crafty friends on the socials. Until next Friday, everybody, I will see you very, very soon on the Jayda InStitches show. Be safe, be crafty, and have an awesome week. Bye!